Hey, Josh.
Hey, Bo. How you doing?
So what am I supposed to do now? Let's see here. Dan said open and make sure I can see the participant screen. Is that right?
Yes. Let me make you a co-host. All right.
Hi, Bo, are you getting your tutorial?
Well, I just came on 5 seconds ago. But I'm willing.
So,
tell
Josh,
me.
can you tell Bo, because Bo is gonna co-chair here, co-host, how it works?
I clicked on participants. I mean, go ahead, tell me.
No, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'm here as well, so I'm happy to help. But yeah, I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to, if anyone needs to share the screen, you should see on the bottom, there's a share screen button you have. Do you see that?
No. Let me see.
It's next to chat.
You have to
Share screen. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so if someone wants to share the screen, right now it's only host, and you would change it to all panelists if and when someone wants to share the screen. When participants, so the panelists are the board members, and when the presenters will join as attendees, which you'll see like the two tabs, panelists and attendees. Panelists on the left, attendees on the right. So when they join the presenter, when it's their turn, you can elevate them. You'll see you can like right click, or there's a little button to elevate them from attendee to panelist. So you can promote them. And then they'll be part of the conversation.
That's probably the most important thing.
Yes. And then they'll be able to share the screen. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess in terms of having the public, they'll raise they all have the hand raising function. So that's just sort of up to you to keep track of and see whose hand is raised. And I think Zoom automatically has like the first one who raised their hand at the top and whatnot.
So how do I see whose hands are raised now? I'm on. It says participants 3.
Yeah, there's no attendees yet.
No attendees.
So like, see, if I raise my hand, you'll see.
Right, exactly.
See it goes right up. And I can lower my hand.
Oh, do that again. Raise your hand again. Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then the attendees, I guess, can do the same thing. So
Right.
the most important thing.
Can you talk? I just muted you to see, but can you hear me? Can you talk now?
Yes. So right, you have the you can.
I can.
You can mute people.
Yeah, that's good.
How do you mute all? How do you mute all? Is there a mute all?
Yeah, there is on the bottom of the participant screen.
Okay.
And what's more? Let's see what more is.
Participants.
I see.
Oh, there you go. Mute all. Unmute all. Okay.
Janet, how you doing?
Hey.
I think we gave Bo the lowdown.
Okay, good.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, so you guys are ready recording?
Oh, we're already recording.
Great, yep. All three of you are, so you're good. Although, Josh, you look an awful lot like Carter, I gotta tell you.
He's not sitting in front of the same piece of artwork.
His panelist photo is, I think it's Carter, but.
You call that artwork with where Carter sits in front of what Carter sits in front of?
The map. He always sits in front of the map.
Yeah, right. Which we tried to get rid of, but then when they redid the office about quite a while ago, but we were unsuccessful in getting rid of that thing. Somebody wanted it. I don't know what.
Okay.
I hate it.
So coincident, I mean, we'll just discuss it, but two of the items on that Adam was bringing up, since one of them became a reality today, which is this retail on sidewalk space. But, we can discuss that and decide in executive session if we have anything to add about that. And then another thing we had discussed was the need to get the garbage off the curb, especially in the in business areas, because it's kind of unseemly to have it adjacent to the people who are dining and the people who are shopping. So that's kind of a hot topic now that I know transportation is taking up too, but there's nothing to prevent us from making our own statement about it.
But we're talking about commercial garbage pickup.
Yeah, commercial garbage. So it is different. We'll discuss that. It's kind of pie in the sky that the city would provide containers for commercial garbage.
Why should it be any different? I mean, the commercial garbage pickup is what it is. Everybody's responsible for it, and they just do it. I mean, I don't get what's the issue with that?
Oh, just not to have it stored on the curb because it's just kind of gross. But because so much of our curb now is now used by restaurants.
Yeah, but the restaurants, I mean, all the commercial users, seems to me, would put it out in a designated area every night, whatever, and the pickup is usually in the middle of the night. So why can't they just continue to do that?
All right, well, we'll just discuss that.
Okay.
But there's a lot of residential garbage also, because obviously we're mixed use, so it sort of sits out on the curb while people are having dinner.
Well, residential only comes on 2 or 3 nights a week, so it's not supposed to be out there until then, right?
Yeah, but they can put it after 6 o'clock and people are dining until 11. It's kind of nasty.
Well, what do you expect them to do? There are a lot of places that they have no capacity for storing.
We should have containers at the curb.
But the containers will be in the way. But they're going to be in the way of people sitting there anyway. I don't know. It's a big problem. It really is a problem. Let's see what people say.
I know people are tired. I don't know if we're going to get many guests.
Well,
the world is falling apart fast.
I know.
How are you doing with committee members? Is everyone going to join, Jen?
Valerie is going to be in and out, but she's the only person. She has a class, so she's on and off, but she's the only one who said that. She had a small conflict.
Well, it's 6:28.
So Dan, you're busy?
Yeah, I actually got into the office for you, so just to make sure that troubleshooting. But I'm on Little Island's community council as well, so they have a internship program right now. So I was going to do that, but I'm kind of doing both. But I'm going to focus on this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When does Little Island open?
This spring. So they've done a really good job with reaching out to the community, bringing in interns. They're actually about to hire many people, whether it's visiting guides or tour guides or ushers for the theater. So there are opportunities for all age groups coming up.
What is Little Island?
Little Island's Pier 55, Barry Diller's.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is that what they call it? Little Island?
Yeah, Little Island. Excuse me.
Gosh, who's that next to you? Hi.
My daughter, Lucy.
Hi, Lizzie.
Nice to meet you.
Say hi.
This is a great way to get her ready for bed.
That's right. What are you talking about? This is
Scintillating.
Stop
It's only
talking about it.
6:30.
Yeah.
Right.
She loves economic development. Me and my wife talk about it all the time.
So when is Little Island opening, Dan?
In the spring. So figure when it gets, probably April, I think April 1st. They haven't fit there. They're still, if you go by the river, you'll see they're still in construction.
Yeah, no, I've seen it.
But yeah, the programming begins in the spring. They've been doing focus groups to figure out how best to launch and what to do to bring in all the arts, whether it's fine arts like sculpture and painting together with theater and music and dance. It's going to be really interesting.
They should have kept it at Diller Island. I guess Barry didn't like that. Why did
Never was Diller Island. Only negative connotations to Diller Island.
I don't think so. He paid for it. He gets to put his name on it.
So where's the money coming from for the maintenance and the programming and all that?
All the money's coming from Barry Diller and Diane Furstenberg Foundation.
Glad they're so rich. And they put their foundation can take care of it kind of in perpetuity.
That's the idea.
That's okay.
From what I understand from Trish Santini, who's amazing. She's the artistic director. They haven't received any other funding once it gets going. They did get a little bit of money from New York State for the finishing of it, for the pier, but they, right now there's a webinar going on, and there's probably about 50 different children of color that are going, learning about how to put together a resume and engaging with the community, as well as possible getting an internship. And they're all 18 to 20 or so.
But what did they? It's all virtual now, though, right?
Right now it's virtual, but think about it. How many theaters can open right now because they're all indoors? This is an outdoor theater.
Right.
It's perfect for COVID in many ways.
Good. Good. I agree.
And they have the okay to open with, certain amount of capacity.
I think it's still a long way away, Janet.
Yeah.
But yes, they would have the ability to open at reduced seating. I've been fortunate to be able to go over there, I don't know, a dozen times. It's like the Colosseum in Rome. It's really beautiful. It's just like a new end version of it.
Okay, just promoting Adam, our person is here.
And you have some attendees too.
Yes.
I've got Ingrid and Margaret.
And Adam is going to do them. Everybody's got pictures that don't really look like them. Adam, that wasn't you. Oops. I think we can unmute people here. So I don't know, we need a few more
Members. How many members do they have?
we have you, Dan, Valerie, that's only 3. So we need Scott, David, in fact, Frederica, we got 4 of, I don't know, is 4 or 6 enough to start?
I'd give it like a few more minutes.
Okay.
Hi, Frederica. How you doing?
Very well, you? Hey, Bo.
Hi, Frederica. How are you?
I don't think I've seen you
Since
in 6 months.
January, maybe January.
Maybe,
maybe
yeah.
February.
I know you've been in Italy, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
No.
Make
The
it.
Italy of the mind, maybe.
Well, I traveled in October and then again in February, and who knew that was going to be the end of it,
Right.
If we all knew, we would have taken very long trips in February.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God. It's like New York's the only safe place to be now in Western,
It is
in
crazy.
Western Mass.
West, yeah. Western Mass is good too.
Vermont. Did we say Vermont?
Maine.
Yeah.
They were having spikes.
In Maine?
Oh no, Massachusetts, I thought a little, I don't know.
But not the western part. But you're right.
Does that include the Berkshires?
That is what I meant by the western
Yeah,
part.
Okay, well, we do have a quorum and it's 6:35, so maybe we'll get started here. So welcome, everybody. It's like if you're on the wrong plane. This is the CB2 Economic Development and Small Business Committee meeting. Just run of show, I'll be introducing the committee members. Then Adam Foreman, who's the Chief Policy and Data Officer from the Comptroller's Office, is going to discuss half a dozen points that we think might be actionable on a report that they did about saving Main Street. After the presentation, the committee members ask questions, the other board members on the call, which there are none right now, would ask questions. Then we go to the public, and then we do an executive session where only the committee members speak. So this being Zoom, everybody's got a name up here, but I'll just run through. The committee members here are Dan Miller, Valerie Della Rosa, Frederica Stiegel, and Bo Riccobono. And now we will turn it over to Adam.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, you might have seen the.
Adam, your audio is very low to non-existent.
We can't hear you.
Let's see if I can pull it up.
So maybe your earphones or something. I don't know.
Better now?
Yeah, better.
Is
A little better, but you might want to raise the volume a bit.
I don't even know how to raise the volume on my end. I know it on the other end. Is it just a matter of bad speakers, or is that
The top row of your keyboard,
Yeah, just
That
F3 maybe, F3.
so that does it for hearing you, but not for my projection?
Are you
Yeah.
using a Mac?
I'm using no, ThinkPad. I'll just speak very loudly. Is this better?
Yes, and then you come closer, it was better.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Policy Officer for the Office of the Comptroller, Scott Stringer. We've put out, a fair amount of reports on how to kind of confront this extraordinary fall in unemployment, rise in unemployment, small business closures, just the fallout and unequal fallout that we've seen from the pandemic. As many of you know, this hit hardest the Main Street businesses, those restaurants and bars and retail and nail salons and barbershops. It's actually a very unusual recession in that regard. It's often the office employment that takes the deepest hit when we see a recession. This is what we saw in 2001, what we saw in 2008, 2009. You actually see those, low wage shift labor or just like Main Street businesses will even rise during recessions, whereas it's the office professional services which drops, and that's just not the case. The people who have the lowest income, least access to healthcare, who are in the deepest financial straits are the ones who are hit hardest by this recession. So this is a real calamity. And small business owners, I count those among them. I've really been hit hard across all of our business corridors in New York City. So we wanted to develop a plan for addressing that. And I think there were three major prongs. One is how we help small businesses now, ones who are suffering, how to shore up their finances, ensure that we don't see a massive increase in vacancies. I think the second prong was, just the reality of we've already seen nearly 2,000 small business closures. We already had a vacancy crisis before this pandemic, and now it's unfortunately only going to be exacerbated. How do we increase entrepreneurship in this city to fill those vacancies as quickly as possible? And then lastly, it was how to increase customer bases for local business corridors. And a lot of that is just expanding access to those business corridors. It's one thing to tell people to shop locally, but if they can't get to their business corridors because there aren't enough bus lines and bus shelters and bike lanes and the sidewalks are too narrow and there aren't enough public bathrooms and the curb cuts aren't there for wheelchairs and for baby strollers, like we need to make our public spaces, public domains more accessible so people can access them, stay there, feel comfortable, shop more. So that's a prong as well. As I think this is inextricably linked to the public sphere as well, improving the public sphere in these neighborhoods. So on that front, as Janet mentioned, I think we zeroed in on 4 recommendations which we thought were actionable and worth really considering tonight. One of them actually is luckily already what was passed today, which was the expansion of retail, which is fantastic. We're very excited about that. We think there's an opportunity for holiday markets and street markets and night markets, et cetera, at least for the ensuing couple of weeks. But making that permanent and expanding it elsewhere, we think is important, and we can put our heads together for how to safely and smartly expand that open retail so that retail is seeing the same benefits that restaurants are. So that was one. And then there were a couple others. One was the liquor license tax that I think most people don't even know this exists. It's usually SLA is very much a state entity. The city, except, at the community board level and those approvals, isn't necessarily addressed in the governance of those liquor licenses. But in fact, we do have a small liquor license tax on every SLA liquor license. It's a small sum that it generates for the city, just a handful of $1 million, but it's just an undue burden, we think, on bars and restaurants at this moment, at this juncture. So eliminating that liquor license tax, we think is worthwhile, that fee. Another is the thinking about vacancies and how to fill those vacancies quickly. So one thing we had talked about, which there's been some movement in the city council, but we don't think has gone all the way, is a map of all vacant commercial spaces in New York City. We think that there should be a full digest, so that's not just tracking X percentage on Bleecker has vacancies, but actually you can click on each vacancy, see what the dimensions of that building are, what type of ventilation systems are there. So it could be converted to a restaurant or retail, how old the space is, etc. So that anyone who is interested in locating X business can see in every neighborhood what type of spaces and what type of dimensions are available for them. So we think that's really necessary. And that's just about Department of Finance collecting that information. They're starting to, but we want them to go farther and getting details that are actionable for potential renters, not just for tracking vacancies. And we also think linked to that is we had talked about in high vacancy corridors that there should be some tax credits for locating in high vacancy corridors to start spurring the refilling of those spaces. And you would need that mapping of vacancy spaces before you can determine what is actually a high vacancy corridor. So those two are linked. And then lastly was commercial garbage, commercial waste. There's been an important action in reforming the carting industry, so that we're moving more towards zones for garbage pickup and commercial waste, and not having potentially 15 different private carters on a single block colliding with one another, but there might be one or two which have a franchise in a specific area. With that, we think there is opportunity for reform at the street level as well, that we can start to see the aggregation of commercial waste on garbage pickup day, so that it's not strewn in front of every single retail and restaurant business and taking up space in our already too narrow sidewalks, but actually collected potentially mid-block in a container, and that's where the carters would pick it up. So that's connected, I would say, to our, to just neighborhood improvement, neighborhood quality, but also just improving street life, improving access for folks with wheelchairs, with strollers, just expanding pedestrian space in general, making our neighborhoods more welcoming so that people want to shop there and want to continue to shop there. And so we think that's important as well. So those are the 4 recommendations that we had talked about prior, and I'm eager to hear your feedback on those and the report in general.
Committee members, do you all have any questions?
Well, that was super fast. So can you go again about the carting and the garbage and exactly how it's shared and how large the containers are and who pays for it, or if it's city responsibility? Just if you can go to a little bit more detail on that, because I know that's a big issue.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't have any specific dimensions to offer right now or costs, because I think it's going to be very much a neighborhood solution. We're seeing some folks Upper West Side and Chelsea, some community boards who are pushing for specific containers, and we're seeing votes at the community board level for them. And they come in different dimensions. There's a group called, I believe it's CheckPeds, and they're connected with the community board there, where they actually wouldn't even want a container. It would just be, you can put the garbage on the street side of the curb, not just on the sidewalk. But I don't think that works for every neighborhood. I think in some areas you would want an actual container so that that is properly corralled and is cleaner and not messy. So I think that's a challenge. But I think it's something that has to be discussed with DOT, with the individual community boards. But we do think it's really essential. I have my baby crawling behind me, so a little bit of a challenge, but I'll do my best.
The thing, the garbage thing, I understood that the Department of Sanitation had some kind of they've been working on a plan for commercial pickup for the last 5 years or something. Are you aware of that, or have you looked at that?
Very much. Yeah. So it's quite new. It's in two Geises, and it's a pilot in both ways. One is with very large buildings. I think it's centered mostly in like the Upper East Side, that individual buildings would corral their garbage and make sure that it was on the street and not on the sidewalk. But then there was a smaller pilot as well with bids, that they would be responsible for corralling the garbage from individual businesses on their blocks, so that it's not in front of each business, but is in a central place on each block. Neither is really developed, is the truth.
But what about the route development? I thought that was in progress as well.
You're talking about the carting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's passed. That was a Antonio Reynoso bill out of northern Brooklyn, and that is happening. We now have we have zones for throughout the city, and there's 2 companies that can bid on those zones, and only 2 private companies will pick up private commercial garbage.
But is that all over the city or just in some demonstration district?
Across the city.
Is that happening now? Because I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's in place yet, but it's going to happen. It was a long drawn out discussion. Initially, the city plan was for only 1 business per zone, and I think a big part of the negotiation was allowing it to open up to more than 1 per zone. But it is very much like a rationalization of, you can't have infinite number of private carters. It's going to be, I believe it's 2, maybe it's 3, but it's a small number of carters per zone, and that is throughout the city, and it is being implemented.
Was that paused because of COVID? Because I know I think it took 10 years to pass this bill. I mean, people have been working long and hard on it. Do we know that it's been like, it's on deck and things are being bid out and it's being done?
I have to get back to you on that one. I haven't heard about a pause during COVID. I knew it was always kind of a slow roll up because it is such a transformative change. But in terms of it actually being explicitly paused because of COVID, I'm unsure. I'll get back to you guys on that.
Thank you.
So just sticking to these 5 topics that you outlined, it's great to see the restaurants everywhere, and I suppose it'll be good to see the retail people spreading out onto the sidewalk also. But then I wonder about all this liquor to go and all the people on the streets with this liquor winding their way through the restaurants and the retail. Is it for $1 million? Is it really the New York that we want to be imagining?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's laws that are being enforced that are in place right now that you have to order food. When you order any alcoholic drink, that you need to be seated when you have an alcoholic drink. So I think those are what's in place, and those are what's being enforced. So I think we'll continue to see that. Whether we want
actually doing the enforcement, right?
It's the state SLA, the governor. I mean, I think they've actually been pretty aggressive. You've seen not a small number. I think well over 100 liquor licenses have been pulled.
But I'm thinking more about individual infractions rather than.
It's up to the restaurant owner, Federica.
Yeah, that's asking a lot, I think.
And I've seen it many times, and people, to their credit, anytime I've asked just to see, they say, well, you have to order food, but often you can get away with ordering literally like potato chips, and they'll still give you a beer.
Right. I think the idea of the vacancy map is terrific. I know it would be a challenge to keep it up to date.
I think that's utter nonsense. Let me just, if you, just because in theory, it would be good. In practice, it'll never happen. And I don't know what the goal is of that, because the fact of the matter is that, the market system works pretty well. Every, as most of us know, every retail listing pretty much goes on to LoopNet or CoStar, which is, it's a multiple listings service for commercial real estate, commercial, retail, retail, you can break it out in office, into various ways. So if the landlord is interested in renting a place, it'll be up on one of those sites, or there are others as well, and especially for co-working spaces, and but it's a function of it's a market function that makes that operate. And I don't see how a government agency trying to capture all this information, which will inevitably be out of date. You know, it will not, if you get 75% accuracy, you'll be lucky. And what's the goal of that? I don't understand what the goal is.
Adam, do you want to answer that?
That was a hard one for me. Could you kind of repeat the gist of it? I was a little distracted.
Well, basically, I just wanted to know what you think. I mean, maybe there's something I'm not aware of, but what is the goal of having a government agency, which automatically means it's going to be somewhat inefficient, having a government agency try to keep track of existing vacancies? I don't know. Let's assume they're even able to do it with 90% accuracy. Why is that helpful?
I think the most important reason is, as a resource for entrepreneurs, just be able to look at a single map of all the vacancies and look. I mean, think about looking for an apartment. Can you imagine how hard it would be if we didn't have the Street Easies of the world and the.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's an economic function. That's a business function that operates quite well. Because it's a self-fulfilling thing. There's a need, and people then take advantage of that need, or you use it. Use the service because it helps them. So why is it helpful for a government agency to try to capture all this information, assuming they even can?
I think it's lowering the information costs for looking for a place that you.
There's no cost to a tenant. Landlord pays the fee. So I don't understand what.
Well,
I think it's about the search. Before you even engage with a landlord, you want to figure out what landlord you want to engage with. What place might be ideal for your business, and I think that's a place to do it. You have a directory of all open vacancies. Look at the building dimension, the dimensions of those potential spaces.
I think there's also the analyzing what's going on all over the city, and you can put it. Seeing it visually will help you analyze the neighborhoods that are in need of help.
That's absolutely right. I think it's two functions. One is from a policy perspective and from a neighborhood perspective, having that information is useful, knowing how many vacancies there are and where the vacancies are.
Can you come closer, Adam? It's a little quiet.
I think it's also important from the entrepreneur's perspective. So yeah, I think it has a twofold function, which is from a community perspective, from a government policy perspective, really important, but then also for the search for a new spot, knowing how many spaces there are in a community, what spaces are appropriate for your business.
Yeah, and it's almost like a heat map. How we have crash stats, and you can see where the hot corners are. It could be, especially from the government perspective, to understand the areas that are suffering the most.
Yeah, very much.
Valerie, do you have a question?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Adam, for your points. About the liquor license tax, I just had a question about what is the typical liquor license fee, and how is that? I understand the burden that it has on operators, but in terms, it doesn't seem as though we're in a spot. I know that goes to the state, but or I'm assuming it goes to the state. Like, how much of a revenue loss is that anticipated, and how much average would it save an operator per year? I don't know the cadence of how that's paid. So I've kind of three questions in there.
Sure. It's a 25% of your liquor license cost, and it actually does go to the city. There's the fee, your liquor license goes to the state, but that 25% tax goes to the city. And it's in the neighborhood of like $5 million, the total revenue for the city. So it's a real drop in the bucket. But in terms of 25% of your liquor license fee is, not nothing, especially in these times. And then how much that would cost would depend on your liquor license. As you guys know, there's different variations of liquor licenses.
That number doesn't make sense to me. Wait a second. So you said it's only $5 million, but it's 25% of your liquor sales? Sorry.
No, of your liquor license.
Oh, of your license fee. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be huge. That'd be something. Very different scale.
Thanks.
And Adam, when we spoke, you had actually thought that, in your report, you recommend broader, not only to waive, temporarily to waive, but like all licensing fees. We had discussed, licensing fees, permitting fees. You had recommended a moratorium, I thought, on a bigger pot of fees for business owners.
Yeah, this is more broad for the first 6 months after COVID ends, however we date that, when the vaccine arrives, et cetera, when it's in mass production, that there would be a 6-month cessation of New York City licenses and fees on opening up a business. And the idea is create this 6-month bubble where people are racing to open businesses because they realize this is an opportunity to save a lot of money and to open up a store quickly. It's analogous, I guess, to 421A, which was a tax cut for housing. When they thought it might expire, developers rushed to file licenses for new buildings. Like similarly, like creating that expediency, we think is important to forego those license and fees, which are not nothing, but the fees it costs to have a fireman, a Department of Building inspector look at your space before you open, those would be waived, so that reduce the cost of opening up a business.
And I do have a question on the vacancy. Have you thought it through further than the idea as to how the information would be gathered and what kind of staff would be necessary? Like, did you think through any of the details on that?
Yeah, it would be part of the Department of Finance's quarterly collection of taxes. And that is already starting to an extent. It was part of a city council bill, like whether the space is vacant, just that very bare bones information is going to be collected. What we're asking is for a little additional information about the building dimensions and building systems, so that it's not only useful to just tally how many vacancies there are on a block in a neighborhood in a city, but also information that could be useful for what type of spaces are available for business owners.
Yeah, so it's not a heavy lift.
It's not a heavy lift. Yeah, no, Department of Finance is already starting this.
Okay.
It's part of their annual collections.
And all that information on lot sizes already, I mean, there's something called Oasis NYC. I'm sure you could do a program where it was just all connected and some of that information can be pulled out of other city agencies.
Yeah, Department of City Planning does a good job taking a lot of those different data sources through Pluto data, but it'll take the whole building's commercial space, not necessarily each individual retail space. So we're asking for a little more search.
How is this information going to be displayed? In other words, is it going to be in a map like Zillow, or how is it?
Yeah, I would think it'd be a map like that. So the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics actually paired with SBS on some similar map, like looking at neighborhood by neighborhood, what are the demographics of that neighborhood, what is some pedestrian level data of how many people pass these blocks, so you can get information of, is this a good block in a good neighborhood to invest in? I think it would be appended to that type of map where you can look actually lot by lot, building space by building space, what's available.
In a doomsday scenario where there's a lot of vacancies and it actually has a negative impact, have you thought of that at all?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think that's why we're also calling for high vacancy tax credits. Like this is a scary situation. And I think as we all know, like these things have feedback loops. Like once there's high vacancies, people stop walking on these blocks, and then there's even higher vacancies because there's less pedestrian traffic. Like we need to nip this in the bud quickly. And that's why we do think there is this, we need a real kind of expedient action here. One is the foregoing of license and fees in those 6 months and forgiving liquor licenses and creating this map. Like we need to get people in those stores quickly before this starts to build on itself.
Okay, Scott, you have a question?
Yeah, hi. I have actually two questions. One is we're talking about small businesses and what we can do to help get them to survive. Why won't Scott Stringer endorse restaurants going up to 50% occupancy when they are everywhere else in New York City? I mean, how many more small businesses are there than restaurants? How do you guys expect us to survive a winter at 25%?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll have to come back I'll have to talk to Scott personally on that and where he is. I
know someone spoke to him today and he brushed it off. I just don't understand why electeds will not push for New York City to be treated equally to the entire rest of the state. And how there's all this talk about the streets and this and that. Well, why we have vacant room inside and we can't use it. My second thing is you brought up the FDNY and opening. So I'm probably one of the few people. I just opened a 20,000 square foot membership club with restaurants. I'm in the library of it right now. I opened about 3 weeks ago. It cost me my entire life savings. And I'll disclose this, even though I don't tell it publicly. I've been open 3 weeks serving food. I had to retrofit my entire kitchen, spend about 100 grand getting all electrical equipment because I can't get the FDNY to come do an inspection. It's been 3 months since I applied. I've called everybody trying to get it, and I don't see how it's even remotely possible to say there's a plan to help businesses get open when we come back, when there's no businesses opening. And I'm sitting here on my hands and knees begging for an inspection for 3 months. How are we going to all of a sudden rush when all these businesses you think are supposedly going to open? What do you need to do something to put something in place when this happens? Because it's crazy what's going on right now with inspections.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. I mean, it's
And there's nothing
infuriating.
opening. There's nothing opening. I don't know. What are you know?
Yeah.
The-
No, I mean, this is something we pushed for, and is something we'll continue to fight for, is speeding up that process, but also having a single point of contact. You know, there's so many different agencies that need to provide approval for restaurants. And under the Bloomberg administration, they had created some expedited pathway and single point of contact within the mayor's office for restaurant openings. That's been moved to SBS, which we think is a pretty big mistake. It's supposed to be in a mayor's office that can coordinate those agencies, not in a single agency. But more than that, we just think that every restaurant, every new business opening should have a single advocate, a single point of contact within the kind of the mayor's office, so that they can coordinate these agency actions and make sure FDNY shows up on time and gets there. The speed of our bureaucracy is shameful, and that's a huge hurdle to reopening businesses.
Scott,
Yeah,
you talking about DOB inspections?
No, no, FDNY, there's something going on with the FDNY and gas. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never experienced it. Everyone talks about it. There's nobody else opening. I've literally had a fully built kitchen for months. I
And you
cannot
can't
get the FDNY to show up and
It's
do,
it's the gas inspection?
yeah, the Ansel inspection.
Can
I
you
mean, it's
send
the
me an email
craziest
about this?
thing. Yeah, and I've spoken to Corey Johnson's office, Carolina Rivera's office. They all call the FDNY. I've hired every specialist, and they all, I don't know if it's a FDNY issue. It's just the craziest thing I've ever seen. So it's awful for me, but I'm scared for this whole quote unquote, when business is going to start reopening again. No one's going to reopen. You can't get someone to come down now.
Yeah. Can you email me about this? I know you've already people are on it, but we'll do our
Yeah.
best as well to reach out to them. And if nothing else, is also just
But,
look at FDNY,
Scott,
what the backlog is.
what does
That's
Con Ed
huge
say
problem.
about that? I mean,
No, Con Ed has been great. They've been waiting. I think they're probably going to cancel my appointment because it's been so long, such a long delay. You talk to everybody. It's something new that's happened in the last 6 months. Some sort of new computer system, they say, mixed with COVID. No one wants to come to work and do in-person inspections. I don't know, but all I get are apologies from every elected's office.
Wow.
And if there were a million things opening, I would understand it, but no one else is opening. So
No, I mean, that's worth an audit as well. I mean, there's certain capacities that our office has that I'd like to get
Yeah.
going on that, because that's really
I
true.
mean, Corey Johnson's office was told expected to be 6 weeks, and I think that was about 10 weeks ago.
Wow.
So,
Speaking of bureaucracies, it wasn't one of the 5 items for tonight, but I was interested to read about abolishing expediters at the DOB. Now, was that abolishing the expediter class that helps people make their way through the DOB, or actual employees of the DOB?
It was the external. I don't think it's necessarily like abolish them. It's more make them less necessary, have the DOB function better so that they're not as necessary. That you actually have someone inside who's an expediter, not someone you have to pay outside.
Right. I thought that, as you explain it, that was a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
That's literally impossible. It's literally impossible. The thing is, most expediters or former DOB employees who retired or left the job and became expediters, who know the system. Years and years ago, it was a corrupt system. You paid somebody off, you paid off an expediter, and that's how you got your approval. That hasn't been the case, I don't think, for 30 years. So these expediters really, I can agree with you. Yes, they should not be. If the agency were doing a good job, you wouldn't need this. But the fact is, you need it. And
Yeah, I think
and-
that's absolutely right. And
And
that's what
every
the point is.
architect I
That's what
know,
the
by the way,
better.
architects refuse to do filings. They just won't do it because they can't spend the time waiting in those lines at the DOB. So they hire an expediter. And I just don't, I mean, I get the idea, but I don't think you'd be able to do it.
I
Yeah,
think,
that's not on our list.
yeah,
for tonight.
but I'll say I agree with you. I think at the current moment, it's infeasible because of the failures of our bureaucracy, and we need to change that because, you know, as
No,
we
you're
just talked
right.
about the FDNY and so many other cases, like we need a better functioning bureaucracy. Like this is, you could talk as much as you want about progressive government, but if your government's not actually effective, then you're not going to get very far.
Okay. Do we have any other questions on the committee? Otherwise, we have an attendee who has a question. Okay, Lila, we're gonna allow you to talk. Lila, do you have a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
Hi, everyone. Adam, thank you for sharing, and also Scott, sorry to hear what you're going through as a small, as a business owner, and thank you for sharing it. I don't envy you, Adam, and just thank you for being honest. I apologize because I think I came into this conversation late and just might have missed the context. But I was just curious, you in the beginning of the conversation, you were talking about vacancies, and I just wasn't clear what was being produced. Is the city of New York creating a tool, a report that shows storefront vacancies? Is it vacancies writ large? And when is it going to be available and all those things? I just was curious and I think missed. So
Yeah.
apologies and thanks.
Yeah, the proposal is to collect information so the city could build a tool, a map of vacancies, store vacancies around the city so that communities can track that information, but also that potential, entrepreneurs could find spaces that suit their needs. And then there was another constellation of policies around addressing those vacancies. One in high vacancy areas, having a tax credit to spur entrepreneurship, and then another a 6-month moratorium on fines and on fees for new businesses in areas so that we can expedite or spur a lot of quick growth once COVID is, whenever it is concluded.
I see. So some of that will be forthcoming and not yet available. We should be following something for.
In terms of the tracking vacancies, the city council passed a bill about 6 months ago that Department of Finance should collect information on storefronts if they're vacant or not, check a box. What we're calling for is collecting a little more information on the dimensions of that space, the building systems in that space, so that it can be useful. They can be more useful for potential business owners. So they know actually what those spaces look like and if it suits their needs, whether they're a retail business, a restaurant, a barbershop, whatever it might be.
Okay, I think I understand. I'm curious, I guess, if the results are going to be, once all the data is gathered, is that going to be released kind of publicly or just to people who are business owners, current business owners? Like, how does it get shared with either other nonprofits or entrepreneurs, as I think someone else was mentioning?
Yeah, it will definitely be available publicly. The data they're collecting now on how many stores are vacant, that will be publicly released when it's in.
Okay, thank you.
That was just passed. When do you think the city council, that's gonna, like, how far out are we from having access to that information?
Yeah, that's another thing. Let me follow up and I'll send you an email on that to share. So those two things.
Thank you. So if there are no more questions, then we're going to go back to the executive session and discuss these things and see if there's anything, any kind of resolution that we want to pass. So I'll go through the points and we can discuss it. So outdoor retail, I guess, has already been addressed. I mean, it's there, it's live, the program. Do you think there's anything, Adam, that anything that's missing from the current program that needs to be highlighted in any way?
Not at the moment. I think looking at how it's implemented, we can get back to you on that if we find any objections.
Okay, so we don't need to address that. So the second one is the committee is talking about licensing fees, whether or not, even though it's small, do we want to what's the opinion on that? And what's the opinion on, suggesting that 6 months post-COVID, all fees, et cetera, should be waived to spur businesses opening? Do we
I
want
think
to wait
actually
on that?
it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a moratorium on fees, but I'm not sure of forgiveness because the city needs money. I mean, that's all these grant proposals to eliminate various kinds of fees for the city have terribly negative side effects. So I think a moratorium would be okay. But
Yeah, the proposal is just the moratorium on
Oh, it is?
those licensing
okay,
costs.
great.
So a moratorium, and then they would be due later, or
No,
they
first,
would
if you
be,
open up a business 6 months after COVID, all the inspection fees, et cetera, opening up businesses would be waived for 6 months.
so what is the committee? I mean, think about that. I mean, vote.
Yeah, I'm still not clear if you mean waived forever or not paid for 6 months.
I mean, waived forever, like in paying the Department of Building to come in to inspect XYZ, FDNY to come in to inspect XYZ, all those things you need to do before you open your business, those fees would not.
Well, what I think actually what you need to do is waive it for a period of time, maybe it's even a year, but I think these fees should accrue and they should be paid back, and maybe they can be paid back over 5 years or something that's easy. But if you keep taking away sources of income from the city, we're going to have worse problems in the future than we have now.
Mm-hmm.
But I get the moratorium. I think that's fine, to help small business owners. I think that's good. But, I think people would be happy to just put something off.
Yeah, no, that's an alternative. Our proposal, I think it's worth pursuing, but our proposal in this instance is.
Okay,
for 6
whatever.
months anyway.
Or Bo, you could actually have some like you're saying, is a retroactive fee, but maybe it's a new fee if you've actually benefited from the moratorium. I mean, I think there are ways to work it out that once the city gets back its legs, you can actually have fees when business is more healthy. But right now you have to attract more business. And I agree with Adam, what's Adam saying, in any which way possible.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I agree.
Okay, so do we want to, as a committee, I mean, obviously this is just a baby step, but if we take a position on it and pass a resolution, we could then obviously, get it out there, just start to push this out more as an idea. Do we want to take a position on this?
Taking a position on this for the current mayor right now?
Well, COVID, I don't know when it's going to be over.
Right, I mean.
Yes, it would be taking a position right now with this current mayor.
Mm-hmm.
They do, I mean, things are happening, obviously, kind of at warp speed in weird ways.
Yeah.
Frederica, Scott, what do you all think?
Let's keep going down the list.
Okay, so then the vacancy data. So one, we just learned this evening that it's partially there, which all of us can do to investigate further. That city council did pass legislation requiring it. Do we want to take it another step? Or, to get more information than what's currently required?
Well, I'm not clear on what you mean by what is currently required and what you said we're already there. In what way are we already there?
The city council passed legislation requiring owners to report if they have vacant storefronts. Is that it, Adam?
Yep.
And they just check a box, vacant storefront.
But when? Starting when and for what period?
And to whom? And to whom?
Yeah.
It's to the Department of Finance. I think it's starting in the next quarter, but I can follow up on that.
So maybe we just want more information about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the
Well,
proposal
but
would be to collect more information.
That
not
wouldn't
just-
be a reso though, right?
No. Unless anyone, no. Well, we can get the information and then decide what we want to do with that.
I mean, we can either support the accumulation of this information because we feel it's going to benefit our neighborhoods, or we can look at it another way and we can say it's actually could be potentially destructive if there's many. We've been fighting for this from the very beginning, right, Bo? We've always been asking for these vacancy rates. In our previous meetings, pre-COVID, everybody wanted to know what folks were paying, let alone how many vacancies there were on the block. I think the information, any kind of data, is really valuable. So I think the community, Frederica, could be a resolution, say that we fully support it. And not only do we support it for the era of COVID, but we think we should always have this such data accumulation in place, because it actually helps our storefront owners understand what the market rate is, rather than an inflated market rate. I think for the future, it actually could lend itself very valuably.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Daniel, if you just have the bold information of how many vacancies there are, that could be, could lead to concern and fear mongering. But if you actually have information on what the systems look like, that actually becomes actionable data to encourage more entrepreneurship. So I think it's actually a more positive development to have more information, where instead of just having X percentage of vacancies in this neighborhood in a daily news editorial.
Right, and let's looking at it, also going to help larger companies take a look at blocks and say, like Brookfield did, takes a look at Bleecker and says, oh, there are 4 storefronts available in a row.
Yeah.
And here we can come in and maybe we can create a destination retail area. So I think information is good. So I think that it is something that we could support and actually come up with ideas on why it's important for us to share that information, but also put it into the angle of going one step further and like Zillow does, what the market rate is at that point.
That's harder.
Much harder.
Much harder to accumulate.
But if landlords were willing to post what a going rate is, it could be either NA or it could be whatever. If you see the number, think about it. When you're looking at Zillow, you're not looking at the $15.8 million apartment, but if you're looking at something within your realm, maybe it will spur some investment in that space. So I think it's very valuable to put a number next to a space.
The thing is, these things are very complicated, and there's so many overlapping issues. The RPIE is something that is filed by businesses every year that goes to the tax assessment based on the rents that are received by the landlord. So that's already in the system. That information is there. So I don't know how that would relate, since the information is there. So maybe there's some way to get that information, number one, without asking for new data to be submitted. And I just don't, in theory, I think this is all great. I just think practically it won't happen. And I think it'll be somewhat meaningless because things happen fast, and I just don't see a government agency able to react so quickly. And we know the real estate tax system in the city is absolutely Byzantine, unfair, and insane, and very few people even understand it. So now we're going to be adding something else onto that.
I think we're trying to renovate it. We're trying to say it's not working. You have high real estate taxes and high vacancy rates, and they don't mix. And what you need to do is you have to change those laws. And if buildings that were valued and rent rolls that were very high a year ago have 1/4 of what the intake is, I think the real estate taxes have to be adjusted.
Yeah, but addressing your first point, I do think this is not a heavy lift. There's a lot of ways that the city is ineffectual and incompetent, but in terms of creating a map of lots and having the 6 variables of the dimensions of the space and whether it's vacant or not, that is something the city can do very easily by collecting quarterly data from the Department of Finance.
But they don't just take that alone. That if you ask any landlords, real estate agents, tenants, what the size is of a given store, what are you talking about? Square foot, usable square foot, net square feet, basement, mezzanine. It's not clear. None of this is clear. So I don't. I think you can be creating more questions really than whatever problem you think you might be solving with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the margins, there might be a few that are misleading, and there has to be decisions about what variables to collect, but I think some core information collecting from, is a space vacant, and then what building systems are in place, some square footage that we can decide on what is the standard. I think that's viable.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, and then as we said, I mean, and it sort of got lost, but it allows for the city to start, if they see a particularly hard hit quarter, then they can go, okay, we need to focus on that. What do we do? What do we do about tax incentive or business incentives, or because the city, that's something they do quite a lot. So Dan, I'll work with you on that resolution on that.
Sure. I don't know if we're all in agreement. I mean, I feel as though what we're trying to do is gain interest, right? We're trying to get people to these places. And I understand Bo's point. I'm actually sitting in a storefront right now, and I have basement space and I have a first floor space. But if I wanted to rent it out, I'm going to have a price tag associated in my head that's going to work with my real estate taxes, I guess. Or is there some way, I guess, Adam, that we can get the two, if we lower our, I mean, we've been talking about this for months. If rents are lowered, are we able and make an occupancy happens, would there be forgiveness for real estate taxes? I mean, that's kind of the big thing, because we can't afford to pay our real estate taxes without getting a certain amount of rent. They go hand in hand.
Yeah, no, I think that's very real. I think that's kind of out of the scope of this specific thing, but I think that's a real thing.
It is. So, just if I was going to, let's say 10 years ago or 3 years ago, I could rent the space for $25,000 a month, and now I can only get 10. Can my, but knowing that I'm going to get a break on that, the real estate taxes on it, I mean, it gives me incentive to fill it up and actually invigorates the neighborhood. I mean, I have empty storefronts all over the place. I'm actually in Tribeca right now, and everything's boarded up. It's like when the riots happened, things got boarded up and they didn't get unboarded.
Yeah.
So, and this is one of the elite neighborhoods. You can't imagine what's happening to others.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just a thought. It's a big lift, like Bo was saying. This is not a small lift. But I believe community board should speak in broad strokes. I think that when we get into too many details, I think that we become legislators and we're really just advisors.
Right, it's conceptual. As far as your taxes go, the certiorari attorneys are going to be very, very busy this coming year. They'll fight it for you, a tax attorney. I mean, the city's going to, because the real estate tax is very much based on income. So if the income's down, you'll get an adjustment. So do we agree, the committee on it, 7:22 Adam mentioned 4 things that could be easily collected that would not be a heavy lift, that we get the vacancy information, some amount, some square footage. What were the other?
Building systems is another one.
Building systems.
In terms of having, the thing that goes.
Yeah, I don't think we can,
etc.
and I don't know that we can get prices because it's both, those things are all over the map. So would the committee be satisfied with sort of recommending that amount of information? Val, Scott.
You have, yes, in theory, again, I think it's a good idea. In practice, I think I'd like to see how you would phrase the question and how the average person might answer it. Like if you just say how many square feet is your storefront that is vacant, you have to define that. That's
I think.
So
again,
theory, yes, I agree. In practice, I'd like to see more detail.
Yeah, no, I think to Daniel's point, I think what we're speaking in strategy, in tactics, and I would love your feedback on that. If
well, you can lard it up with so much information that it never gets done. So
yeah, no, I think
disincentivize people to give you the information.
Yeah, I think it's essential that it's just 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah, but also, how are you going to get people to answer anyway? And how are you going to get them to answer truthfully? I mean, people will think about, what will this mean? Will it raise my taxes if I say this? Will it lower my taxes? I mean, there are reasons that people answer or don't answer.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have an even response of some kind, then the data is completely useless.
Yeah, I mean, that's true for any government form. And I would also say there's incentive because people are going to be looking at those spaces. You know, if they're searching for, you know, a new restaurant or new retail and they see that's a lot of false, you know, there's incentive to tell the truth.
I mean, if you want to go ahead and try to do this, I have no trouble endorsing the proposal to try to do something, but you know, let's just see what it looks like.
Okay, so Will, I mean, I'm thinking maybe we just focus on vacant, you know, that it's vacant and the size.
Well, I don't think we can really opine about the garbage
Okay, so
unless other people feel differently.
uh,
Waiving the permitting fees and for how many months and starting when, I don't think that's our role, as somebody just said. The expansion of retail onto the curb is happening unless we have any feelings about any limitations on that.
I think we want to see how it plays out first.
And then there was that modest elimination of the liquor license tax, which I don't know, I guess I personally have mixed feelings about that. What do you think? Scott, were you here for that conversation?
Who are you asking?
Scott.
About the liquor, basically that they don't, the places don't have to pay for a period of time the liquor license fees. Is that what it was? 25%?
Yeah, it's actually just cut it all together.
The tax.
25% tax on liquor license fee.
When you say tax on the liquor license fee, you mean, is that different from the actual fee for the license for the year?
Yeah, so you pay the liquor
I should know what it is, but
yeah. You pay the liquor
Just pay.
license to the state, and then there's a 25% tax on how much you pay to the state, that you pay to the city.
yeah. I mean, it's a small number. I think a liquor license is about $3,000 a bar per year. So any savings is great. You know, probably doesn't move the needle as much as some of the other stuff we're talking about.
Right, well, Adam had said it would move the needle about $1 million. That's.
5.
Oh, that's the city collection.
Oh, is it 5?
That's the
No, I
city
thought you were
collection.
talking about the city part of it.
Yeah, the
How
city
much-
part.
As Scott said, it would save a business, you know, $1,000, you know, which is not
Mhm.
many times is, I think, useful.
So I don't know, too small to worth weighing in on? Or Scott, do you think everything helps?
I think that measure is just indicative of what other things must happen in order. I think it's a good measure. And I mean, to Bo's point, we have to, we can't give away the store, right? We need to have income. But once people return and stores open and COVID goes away, we want to make sure that we have the foundation in place. And here's one way to attract new businesses. And we need to come up with other ways. But then once they're here, understand that then the city's responsibility is to collect more income in other ways. So
I think what's good about it is A, it's targeted. It's very much focused on restaurants and bars who are hurting severely right now. I think B, it speaks to like a principle of just double dipping, of the state charges you and then the city second charges you, which is problematic. So I think and then it just speaks to, and then it helps out, even if a small amount, these industries that have been struggling. So in terms of that double dipping, in terms of that being targeted, I think it's kind of a surgical kind of important measure.
Okay, and for how was the idea to do that for the next 2 years? I mean, forever?
Talk about eliminating it altogether.
Okay.
As a proposal.
Okay. I actually thought there's something to the idea of doing a moratorium on fees for the first 6 months after COVID and deferring those to accelerate business. Nobody else is, Frederica, you don't feel that that's our place?
I guess I didn't realize that was on the table.
Is that, I mean, is that something what does anyone think? Is that in our bailiwick to discuss that?
I mean, if we thought that our federal government was going to do something for the city and that money could be used to fund some of these things, then yeah. But as to Bo's point, the city needs to get money from someplace. I think the greater aggravation is the Byzantine nature of all of these processes. Not paying the fee for them, it's figuring out how to do it. So Scott's nodding. I see Scott nodding.
Yeah, I want to just clarify one thing. I'm not sure if if there was a misunderstanding with Bo's earlier point, the fines and fees would only be opening up new businesses. It wouldn't be on existing restaurants and businesses. So it's about spurring new entrepreneurship, which generates more wealth. It's not just about waiving all fines and fees for existing businesses, which would start to be extraordinarily expensive.
But then you get into the whole issue of what's a new business and who are the people and how many people are in the ownership, and is one of the people in an existing business and the 3 other partners new business. I don't know how you're going to deal with all of that.
Is that opening up a new space though? Is that taking a vacant space and making it furnished?
Non-vacant. Yeah, that's it.
A new space.
So that's the key. So if you take a vacant space and you turn it into an establishment, then you
How
get.
about if we move down the block and you get a new space? Okay, it's okay. Do it. I don't care. I don't know.
Change. I guess you don't want, you're gonna lose your corporation to do that. Obviously, if you're the same business, and you keep the same corporate name, what's the answer to that, Adam? You wouldn't be able to do it, right?
Yeah, you just start a new LLC. It takes 5 minutes. I mean, I'm not sure. Let me just ask you this seriously. What are we opining on? Is there legislation in the city council to this effect? And if there is, are they looking for input from community boards? Are they considering legislation? Or is this something that will be a rule that will be imposed by the mayor? Or what exactly is this? I'm not clear.
This is an agenda from the controller's office, from Scott Stringer, and it's about building community support so that we can elevate these issues and get legislation. It would have to be legislation.
All right, so
you're talking about the current controller coming out with a proposal for which he would look to the city council for support. Is that right? To pass new legislation?
That's correct.
okay, can I ask a question? Does it complicate our position that the comptroller is also a candidate for mayor and we are adopting the ideas of one of the candidates?
That's up to you. I'm speaking.
I know, this is executive. We don't usually have the presenter.
I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. I'm going after ideas. I'm not going after a candidate.
I'm just asking the question, Dan.
I'm answering the question. I don't think it's
half our city council people are running for one's, this or that or the other. We're having a huge shuffling of candidates.
Okay, but could you imagine that other candidates would come to us and we would, generate rezos based on their platforms also?
It's not Scott's, this is coming out of the controller's office. It's not on his platform for mayor. Hoyle is running for president. So
I just want to make sure that we, that we operate in the right realm in the right way.
No, but the difference to me, correct me if I'm wrong. The difference is if Scott Stringer as controller, forget about running for anything, as controller, he's considering implementing some regulations that are within his power to do. And he's coming to us to say, should he do that? I think it's perfectly fine that we give him our opinion about whether or not he should do that as the current controller. But if he's coming to us to throw support to proposals that he might generate to then ask the city council to pass legislation, I don't know where there's a role for the community board in that.
Right. Well, I would think that he's not going to turn his back on everything he generated as a comptroller. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, I'm with Dan that we're looking at ideas here.
Okay.
For us.
I think it's an important just to remind ourselves. Sorry.
Right.
I think it's an important reminder just to remember that in general, maybe not specifically for this, but that's a good. I didn't think about that, Frederica. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And to be clear, I was invited here.
We're not. We have no problem with this. Okay,
yeah. And then just to the point, I think it's just about elevating ideas, and yeah, you guys can decide on your own, like what you feel comfortable with.
All right, so to get through these, so where are we with, is it too complex, or do we want to add, do we want to make a statement about some moratorium on fees for new businesses? We don't have a consensus on that, so just move on.
I think we can keep it big, Janet, and just say we're interested in ideas that promote a new entrepreneurship in the city, and this is one, and then we can
Promote
kind
and
of describe what's being put in front of us and just use it as more ideas. And our goal is to promote new business, and this does that.
Okay, but versus the vacancy, which we do actually want to pass a resolution in support of, vacancy information, because we've
Yeah,
wanted.
I look at that as a different bucket in a way, but which we didn't quite finish talking about, but I think we're there with if
Okay,
we agree that will also help, because information will also show where there are vacancies. I personally think it would help to also put price tags, but I understand Bo's point, and I'll step down from that request. But I think that in the future, it would be helpful. We also, one of the things that I think we should mention is, and something that Adam spoke about, was the width of sidewalk space. It has to be 8 feet. A lot of these places are not giving 8 feet, whether it's restaurants, and make sure that retail stores do, so that it's ADA compliant. A lot of places you have to go into the street in order to get by. You have planters in the middle. Yes, it looks very nice and inviting, but they're taking over public space and not allowing any access for pedestrians. I think it's crucial that those means are actually adhered to.
yeah, it's not getting enforced. I mean, all the DOT, put out a diagram with the stores, and right, it's actually, it is a requirement.
Did you ever see the pictures of Orchard Street back in the day?
Yeah, in the 1920s.
Right, when people were like creeping through the center of the street with everything spilling, that's what I imagine.
But one thing I want to ask Janet, today apparently I missed this somehow, but are there guidelines for what the retail stores have to follow?
Yes. Yeah, it just came out. They have a diagram, images. It's a certain number of feet from their storefront, and they are allowed to take curb space if it's an actual restaurant street. So if it's one of those streets that's closed to through traffic, that's closed, they can actually, use the curb lane just like the restaurants.
And this is all self-certified also.
Yeah, I just came out today. I haven't looked closely, but it is, I think.
Well, the bottom line is, all of this stuff, I think it's worth trying it, but, and that was my problem with the city making the restaurant thing permanent. I mean, I think definitely for another year, see how it works and work out the kinks and all of that. And I think the same thing is true with the retail. Let's just see how it works, because, and I get Dan's point about the access and the ADA, and you don't have that. And you can't have both. You can't have both all these tables and good ADA access. It just is not possible, and garbage and everything else. So I think we need at least a year to see how the thing operates, and then we'll just have to clean it up at some point.
Yeah, I don't see us taking any action this evening on it. It's too fresh. The one I would like to, I guess we need to find more information, but the commercial waste zones is really critical. It's such a quality of life issue. It's such a safety on our streets issue. Do we want to, I mean, I know in other committees we pass resolutions, in support of things, and do we want to get more information on that? Do we want to make any statement on wanting that to be accelerated, wanting it to be implemented?
No, I think it's a good idea, but I was very surprised to hear that it's already been passed and implemented, because I don't see it implemented. I mean, I've been sitting, I go out to eat almost every night in different places in the area, and I see garbage trucks literally sometimes, like at Finelli's. I was at Finelli's the other night on Mercer and Prince. I saw the same garbage truck maybe 6 times within an hour. So I don't know what is implemented. What the
It isn't implemented yet. It just passed that there would be 2 carters per zone.
But when and starting when? I think I asked you that, but I forgot your answer.
I'll have to get back to you on the date.
Julie, if we delved into that, is there an agency that we would be addressing specifically?
DSNY, right?
Okay, and we would put all these things in the same reso, or just send it around, or different resos, or what?
Yeah. I think the zoning stuff already passed. So what specifically we're bringing to you tonight is pushing for restaurants to corral their garbage in a central location so that they're not collected in front of each individual lot.
But can I just say something that one of the problems of that is restaurant garbage really needs to be picked up right away. And that's the theory. It is picked up every night. So then I think that when you bring containers out, you run into all kinds of other problems with an incomplete evacuation of the container, which leads to rodents and all of that. So I guess the problem is that all the garbage is sitting next to the people who are sitting there. But I do think the garbage needs to be picked up every night. I don't think building owners and restaurants have a place to keep it inside. And I don't know how you deal with this, except if you allow the collection at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So it all gets picked up.
Yeah. I mean, I think the centralized containers address a lot of those issues. That there isn't space inside, that this needs to be collected every night. Having it in one central location on a block makes for easier pickup. It's only one pickup per block. So it corrals it in terms of creating more space for pedestrians, but also
same company, it might work. If it's the same company, they're responsible for that container, then it might work. But so it would be good if it is.
Yeah. That's right.
And obviously some of the bids are doing it. I know I've seen containers near the Bryant Park. They're doing it. Yeah. It's really disgusting that we don't containerize our garbage externally and get it off the sidewalk. And as Dan is saying, we're doing broad strokes so people be comfortable just passing, we frame the resolution, a series of things to support our small businesses, and one of which would be a program for containerized commercial garbage.
Mm-hmm. In a central location, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Now, what is that central location, Adam? I mean, you're going to have residents complain if it goes right in front of their building, right?
Right.
So who determines what's the best location for that container?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a hard conversation. I mean, it's right now garbage is in front of every single place, so everyone loses. Now there's only be potentially one.
Well, I mean, everyone loses, but at the same time, in 3 hours, it's gone.
Exactly. Yeah.
But 3 hours is a long time if you're out there having dinner next to it.
Well, tell the restaurants to put them out when they close.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't change. Now it could be even quicker, that it's picked up in just one central location.
Other countries do containerize their garbage and have centralized locations. We don't, as Dan, this is for ideas. I don't know, we have to figure that out. We can just
a concern you might want to put down there, and that there should be consideration for
sure.
The best place to centralize that container. And there should, it should have community input. It shouldn't just be decided to keep it far away from the restaurant in front of a big residential building. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
No, like
talked about is doing it in front of fire hydrants in a way that, because it would be set location, it wouldn't block access to the FDNY. It would actually protect those fire hydrants.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one way where cars are
smart. That's a smart concept. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
And then, we have very specific building types here, but I'd say, again, Bryant Park, they've put them next to freight entrances of buildings. So that's a dead zone.
Exactly.
And, but we can make suggestions.
Yeah, I think that's
well, right. I think you just add in a sentence that, such as around fire hydrants, that's designed in such a way that it doesn't impede, not only provides garbage, centralized garbage, but also protects the fire hydrant. And it gives access to the FDNY. I think that can be happening. That's accomplishing two things with one measure.
Okay. All right. So I think I've taken notes. I think we have a few things to work with. I'll share everything with the committee if I've made any mistakes here. Any final word on anything from anybody?
I would love I'd love Scott Stringer's office to come back again. I know that I've invited Luke in the past to hear about these other initiatives. I think it's really important for our committee to create a bridge with the Comptroller's office, whether it's Scott or the next Comptroller. And I want those conversations to continue. I think it's great that you came tonight, and that the more participation and voice that we can have with you, the better it will be for the city and for our neighborhood.
Yeah, could not agree more. And Luke's great, and I'll pass that along to him as well.
And I'm not sure how great my note taking was, but there are a few things, Adam, you were going to get back to us about. I think that you.
Yeah, I think it was when the zone system was going to be implemented, and then when the collection Department of Finance.
And and Scott was supposed to get his inspection tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, sounds good.
You make that call.
Thank
All
you.
right,
He
sounds
can
good.
make
Oh,
that
yeah.
happen. Let me
We'll
know,
start it.
because I've got a couple
Okay.
other favors to ask.
That'd be
All right.
Well, that's
Well,
the whole thing.
thank you so much, Adam, for coming this evening. You've
Thank you
given
for having me. Thanks for the hard questions. I really appreciate it. I had fun.
quite a lot to chew on here, so
I didn't think that was that hard. but Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
So,
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Kenneth. You can, I'm
Bye.
happy to work with you
Thank
on it.
you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.